and to find a bit of shite on George. How easy is that? PK, Pitster, Philippa went naughty. Born in 1984. This determined little blonde-haired girl grew up with a love of the outdoor and animals. She inherited the Stanbury knees and the Macefield nose. She started school in Little River before we moved to Goffs Bay, and then she attended the Akara school. And at the age of 10, I think it was, we bundled her off to Rangiruru to board. One other boarder her age, Kimberly, who's here tonight. Now, Pippi just took this in a stride. She's a pretty unflappable young lady. Even today, some weeks ago, probably months, she ordered a wedding dress. To this day, that wedding dress is still on a container in China. Lost. She ordered another wedding dress, also went missing. At that stage, I would have thrown my bloody toys out of the cot, but Pip said, "No, Dad, it's all right, mate. It's all right. I'll have something to wear." And doesn't she look stunning? I don't know whether the Macefield side of it can take much of the accolades for that. Her mother today turned up at the motel where Pip's grandparents and Marilyn's parents were staying, and Ross, Marilyn's dad, said to Nance, "There's some young lady at the door." And it was Marilyn, he didn't recognise her. Now, she was a cunning little rooster when she was a kid. Poor old Timmy, we're allowed to smack kids' asses in those days. But then, as typical siblings, they'd bloody have their scraps. And one would be always bawling, and Pip never ever got her bottom smacked. It was always Tim's fault. She loved her sport, and still does. And I think this probably sums up the calmness of Pip. I remember taking her to a gymnastics competition, the Canterbury gymnastics competition. There was only probably 4 kids in Akara that did it. And off we go, Marilyn was doing something else, and off we go to Christchurch, and we go to a gym in Papanui, and look, I've never seen so much pressure on kids. There were kids bawling, there were parents and coaches yelling, and I don't know why kids ever went there, but anyway, the Pips though, she's up there right at the top, the beam to go, and she's leading. And I don't know whether Pip ever had a beam in Akara, probably walked across the sheep yards or something, but anyway, she was up on this beam, and she looked over at me, smiling, and all but fell off. And as a result, I think she came second. She got off that, she came over to me and she said, "God, I messed that up there." That was it, that was Pip, no grizzles, nothing. Carrying on with the sport theme, Pip could actually high jump. And anyway, Pip, she was in the South Island Champs, and she was a little slim girl with long legs, and she could nearly jump as high as herself. And she came second in that high jump for the South Island Champs. Anyway, we thought we had this bloody future Olympian there. So we thought, right, we've got to get some coaching for her. So we sent her to a guy by the name of Terry Lomax, who is pretty well known in sport. And he coached at Boys High. Well, off Pippi goes to Boys High, and one session was enough. "Dad, I'm not going back, all the boys are looking at me. How things bloody changed. Look, she represented Rangi at touch 3 times at the Nationals, twice runners up. Basketball and netball, which she still plays today. She's got lots and lots of ribbons for her horse riding. It's still on the wall at home from local shows. I think one of her greatest achievements was last year when some of her dearest friends in Geraldine encouraged her to do some running. And Pip and these 2 girls, I think Staz actually did the full marathon, but Pip and 2 other girls did the half marathon, and Pip completed it. Leaving school, Pip did a gap year in Scotland at a place called Dalguise, which she really loved. And at that stage, Marilyn and I didn't have any kids at home, so Marilyn thought she'd get a bit of fill in a bit of time by umpiring netball at Hagley. About 11 o'clock Saturday morning, my phone would go as we were walking to netball. Hello, Dad. I said, Pip, sir, you all right? Yeah, I'm all right, a little bit pissed. Pip had missed the last, had a group of friends walking over to miss the last taxi from wherever the pub was. Come and get me. Then Pip came home. After a couple of years in the travel industry, she realised that her heart wasn't in that job sitting inside. She really loved her outdoors and the animal, and she became a vet nurse and moved to Timaru and then to Geraldine. And once again, Pip and now George, surrounded by lots and lots of good friends. Pip has never been materialistic. An example is when she left school, my father, her grandfather, gave her an old Cortina Corona. The beast. Now Pip still drives that today. She can drive it from Timaru to home and it wouldn't go off full with the petrol tank. That's cool for Pip. If she can save money, that's superb. George, with great reluctance, has been seen to drive it once. I gave Pip 2 bits of advice. The first bit of advice was to only go out with guys with 9 or above on their rugby jerseys. I've had some dealings with those other ones with the low numbers and Well, anyway, along comes George Renshaw. I thought, shit, he's not a halfback, he's not a speedy winger. But anyway, I think just to get me to accept his advances on my daughter, he went to one training session and played 1 game at centre for Geraldine. He retired again. The second bit of advice was to take your time on deciding who you really want to spend the rest of your life with. But I didn't mean take 10 bloody years. Now on to George Renshaw, you must have some really good mates because I could find bugger all about you. Except for your love of driving fast and your love of Cadbury's chocolate. When George rang me to ask if he could have Pip's hand, I decided rather quickly before he changed his mind, yes, George. Because we had wondered whether George and wedding would ever come in the same sentence. Although we have for a long time thought of you as part of our family, we now officially welcome you into it. When holding that little baby all those years ago and thinking one day that I would have to give her away, I could think of no one better to take her from our hands. And I know And I know that Chris and Anne and family must be as proud of their son George as we are of our daughter Pip today. Your married lives have just begun. Love each other through the coming years and grow that love together. I know that with your group of friends and your families, we will help you do that. And without further ado, I'd ask you to all stand and raise your glasses as I propose a toast to the bride and groom, the new Mr. and Mrs. Renshaw.
Mr. and Mrs. Renshaw. Cheers.